Welcome, everybody. My name is Nick Rudolph, and I am the Baltimore Regional Director with Maryland Capital Enterprises. And today we're going to be talking about business cash flows, projections, and how to access capital, as well as how to write a business plan. So, a little bit before we start, we are Maryland Capital Enterprises, and what we are here to do is help people start and grow their small businesses across the Eastern Shore of Maryland and in the Baltimore region. Right now, we're serving the entire Eastern Shore, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and Arundel County, and we need to update this PowerPoint because we're also doing Hartford and Cecil County. We started back in 1998 doing small dollar loans on the Eastern Shore. We just grew as an organization, developed a relationship with the SBA, and hopped over the Bay Bridge in 2012. In 2020, we became a women's business center, which allows us to offer enhanced services to women-owned businesses. And you can learn more about all of that at our websites, marylandcapital.org and www.womensbusinesscenter at marylandcapitalenterprises.org. So a lot of folks look at us as a lender. What we are is a CDFI, a community development financial institution. And what that means is that we operate similar to a bank that does commercial lending, microloans, but we are a nonprofit. We're helping small businesses to build community. So our loans are often backed by the SBA. We get our funding for the loans from lots of different places, including the federal and state government and sometimes private sources as well. In addition to the loans, we offer free what we call technical assistance. That's one-on-one counseling, webinars just like this one, and all kinds of other things that we can do for you to help you grow your business either virtually or coming out to you. All of those services are free, and there is no need to apply for a loan to take advantage of those services. But of course, we are here for you if you are looking for a loan, and we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the presentation. But before we start talking about the cash flows, which is really the majority of this presentation, we really want to go into what you need to do to write a solid business plan so that you can get the most out of your cash flows. So before you start your business, you really want to develop a business plan. And if you've already started and you don't have one, that's okay. It's not too late. But, I like to think of a business as a building, as a skyscraper. So if you are in downtown Baltimore, you'll see a fence around a vacant lot with a beautiful picture of the skyscraper that's going to come in. And you're going to be waiting and waiting and waiting for months and months and months for nothing's happening. And what's happening is they are building the foundation for that building. They're doing all of the research, all the environmental studies, making sure the ground can handle the skyscraper. And then once you see the work start, it really, really picks up quickly. And then within 6 months or so, you've got a thriving business. And that's what you want to think about with your business. The more you put in on the foundation, the more you're going to get out of it. And honestly, the easier it's going to be as you're growing your business. So first, we're going to start talking about writing a business plan specifically to get a loan. So who does need a business plan? Well, that's going to be anybody who has a business. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, it's going to help you when you're looking for capital. You definitely need this if you're looking for a grant or a loan. But also, as you're starting your business, you're going to get in the weeds. Things are going to be busy and it's going to be easy to forget things or easy to lose your place. This business plan is going to be, a set of things that's going to show you how you wanted to run your business. It's going to ground you. It's going to let you know what to do up next. Now, it doesn't need to be a huge plan. We're not looking for 20, 30, 100 pages. Oftentimes, 3 to 6 pages is enough. We just want to make sure that you understand where you fit in the market, what you're doing, how you're going to get the word out, and how you're going to make money. So what should it contain? Well, you really want to make it the blueprint for your business. So you want to talk about why you started. You want to talk about your pricing, your customers, all of that stuff. We're going to go into some great detail about that in the next couple of slides. But you also want to think of it like a resume and consider your audience. Whenever you're applying for a new job, you might move things around in your resume specifically for that job. Same thing with your business plan. If you're looking for a grant, you're going to want to talk about how you're hiring from the community and how you're a strong part of the community. If you're looking for a loan from a bank, They like all of that stuff, but you want to highlight your ability to get them their money back because ultimately that's the thing that they care about the most. And you can do that easily by just moving things around in your business plan. I also wanted to say before we go to this next slide, we only have a few people here today, so feel free if you have questions to just interrupt me, and I'll also stop a couple of times throughout the presentation for questions. So, what is a bank and a CDFI looking for in a business plan when we're making a decision about whether or not we want to give you a loan? Do we want to fund this? And the first thing is this guy's looking at, can they pay back this loan? That is, one of the most important things. We're lending out federal dollars or federally backed. We want to make sure that we're good stewards with that money. So, what are we looking for? Number one, passion. We want to understand why you were drawn to this business and what drives you to continue. Now, this doesn't mean that this has to be a subject matter that you're passionate about. It can be something that you're really good at, but you have to be passionate about the business itself. Expertise. We want to know that if you're starting a business, you've got some sort of expertise in the field, and that can come through actual experience, through education, through mentorship, or through getting certifications and training. Oftentimes, it's a combination of all of these. And even if you don't have experience, if you can show us you've got a mentor, oftentimes we can work with you to get a loan. We also want to know that you've done your research, that you really understand where you fit in the market, and that you know who your target customers are. Another thing we want to make sure that you understand is contingency plans. Small businesses often don't have a lot of employees. So what happens if you get sick and you can't work for 6 weeks? And then most importantly, and something that folks always forget to do is put in an ask and put it near the beginning. We want to know what is expected of us as we are reading this business plan. So I'm going to talk about the business plan in 4 different parts, but before I do that, are there any general business plan questions? Nope. Okay. So our business plan, as I said, is broken up into 4 parts. It's the way that we write ours, and we'll help you write yours. But the truth is, you know how to tell your story better than us. As long as you've got all of this information in your business plan, you can order it and put it in sections, however makes the most sense for you. So the first part is going to be your executive summary. This is often written last because you might be pulling from the rest of the business plan. So the first thing you want in your executive summary is your elevator speech, your opening sentence, where you are letting the reader know who you are and what you're looking for. We're going to be doing a cash flow spreadsheet in a little bit for a fake business I made up called Nick's Dill Pickles. So the first sentence of my business plan might say, Nick's Dill Pickles LLC is a startup wholesale pickling operation out of Baltimore, Maryland. We are seeking a loan of $10,000 to buy our initial pickling equipment and supplies. If that's your first couple of sentences, then the reader's going to know who you are, and what you are asking of them. After that, you then want to talk about what drew you to the business. Why did you want to get involved? Are you good at it? Did you see that, elder relatives weren't taken care of well in assisted living and you want to make sure that you do a better job for the next generation? What drew you to that business? Then a brief description of your business. What are you doing and what are you doing that's different that's going to draw people to your business? And then a little bit more of an ask, a little bit more detail. Specifically, what are you going to buy with the funds? Or what you're going to do with the grant money if you're applying for a grant. The marketing plan. This is going to be the longest part of most business plans because it's way more than just how you're going to advertise your business. This is where all of the research is going to come in. So the first thing you want to do is describe your industry and show that there's room in your industry for you. So the way you do that is by looking at industry publication, your local chambers of commerce, or just Google. Look for articles and studies that show that your industry is growing and pull quotes from there. You then want to talk about your target market. Who is your primary customer? And as it says here, it cannot be everyone. We really want to know that even though everybody can come into your store, who's going to be your bread and butter? Who's going to be the people that you're targeting your advertising to? You may have a salon in downtown Baltimore that wants to target to African American women between 35 and 55 who make more than $100,000 a year. Sure, anybody can come in and get their hair cut, but if you know you're getting that demographic in, you're going to make enough to pay yourself, pay your employees, and pay your rent. That's your primary customer. That's your target customer. You also want to show that you understand your competition. And no matter how unique your business is, you've got some competition. So go out there and find them. A good way to do that is to list three competitors. Talk about what they do well and how you're going to thrive in the market with them. What are you doing differently? What is your special sauce? Is it pricing? Is it a service that you offer? Is it a machine that you have? What is it? And you also want to think locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. We had somebody who got a loan to open up a comic book store. She said, okay, well, here are the two comic book stores within a half hour of us. This is what they do well. This is how we'll compete with them. But also, Amazon.com is a competitor because anything that we sell, they can buy there. And we understand that we are going to have to offer additional customer service to get people to come and buy stuff at our store. You want to talk about your pricing. Are you going to be, high end, middle of the road, or are you going to be a value proposition? And why and how are you going to afford to do that? And then last but not least, advertising. And it's not just, I'm going to have a social media campaign. We want to know exactly what kind of campaign you're going to have, what kind of apps you're going to be using, and what's going to be in there. Also, advertising doesn't necessarily need to be social media or TV or radio or print. You might be in an industry where networking is more important. So getting the word out is more about spending that money to go to conferences or to go to networking events, so that you can meet those business to business clients or those really niche clients. The next section is your operations and organization. This will probably be a little bit shorter than you might think it is, because this is just a lot of the technical stuff. So first, you want to list your structure again. Are you an LLC or a corporation? If you've got a reason why, you might want to talk about why. You want to discuss your location, right? So are you going to be home based? Are you going to be online? Are you going to have a brick and mortar downtown? That's really important, based on how much money you want to take in. Number three, your hours. Are you going to have storefront hours? If you don't have a storefront, what hours are you answering the phone? What hours can your customers get a hold of you? Also, who is going to answer the phone when there is a problem with a customer? You also want to talk about whether you need employees, and if you do, how the management structure is going to work. Will they be W-9 employees or will they be contractors? You really want to think about how you want to grow, and scale that growth. Are you going to have one employee year one and maybe three in year two? And if so, why? Then you want to talk about your insurance. Every small business needs insurance. So just talk about the plan you have and what you're covered for. Many small businesses only need a plan that's about $1,000 a year. But if you start introducing things like kids or transportation or food, then those numbers can start to go up. So make sure you know where you are, when you're looking for funding to start your business. You also want to talk about your growth. Are you planning to turn this into a multi-storefront operation? Are you planning to franchise? Or, do you have an exit strategy? Do you want to build this up to a successful business and sell it? Or do you want to pass it on to your family? And then last but not least, your contingency plan. What happens if you are not able to work? How will your business continue to run? Who is trained up to make sure that there's not a stoppage in the delivery of the services you provide? And then last but not least is your financial plan. This can be part of your business plan, but oftentimes it can be an addendum. For the parts in the business plan, if you are a new business, talk about your startup costs. If you've got quotes for your equipment or anything like that, include that as well. You also want to talk about your break even if you're a new business. You want to talk about, I know I need to make this many sales a month in order to pay all my bills, pay my employees, and pay myself. Now, all of the business plans, if you're looking for funding, are going to need the cash flow projections that we're going to go over. And all the business plans, if you have any credit issues, you might want to talk about them in this financial section. The reason why that is the last thing we like is surprises. If we know that, maybe you took out a credit card when you were in college and you ran up the debt and, you've been paying well for 3 or 4 years, but it still dinged your score, talk about that. Because if we were expecting that when we look at the credit report, it's going to be a lot easier to mitigate. Now, if you're an existing business, you really want to include your existing business financials. Things like profit and loss statements for at least the last 2 years if you've been around that long. Your most recent quarterly balance sheet. Anything that's financial about your business. You probably don't want to be putting your bank statements in here, though. So that is the business plan section. Are there any questions specifically about the business plan? Alrighty, then we're going to go into cash flows. Now, and this is going to be a little bit different. There's going to be part PowerPoint. Then we're going to pull that off, bring up a spreadsheet, and actually do a sample cash flow projection. We will be able to email you the slides, our business plan template, the blank copy of the cash flow projection template, and the one that we're filling out tonight. So, what are cash flow projections and why do we need them? Well, they're just showing you the amount of money coming in and the amount of money going out for expenses. And what that is really showing you is if you're making a profit. Because if you're pulling in $1 million a week and it costs you $1.1 million to do your services, you don't have a successful business. So you're looking for the cash flow document. We've got this one here, the scary bread spreadsheet. But if you've got a different format that you like, as long as it's broken out monthly and we know your cash position a month to month, then we'll probably be good. So it's good to know, first of all, it's a lot less scarier than it looks. This is a living document that's going to change over the life of the business. Not only will there be inaccurate cells, most of the cells in here are going to be inaccurate from realization from what it really is, and that's fine. What we're really looking for is that you understand what you need to do in order to make enough money to pay everybody and pay yourself. So, doing that, you want to be realistic and not too bullish. Even if you know you're going to make $2 billion in year one, put way less than that in your cash flows because it's going to scare away small business micro lenders because they're just thinking you're going to scale too fast. So you want to show that you can do well in a worst case scenario. We had a person who made homemade wedding invitations for about $1,000 a client. They said, well, there's 10,000 weddings a year in Maryland. 10,000 times 1,000 is 10 million. I'm going to make $10 million a year. We said, look, you're a one person shop. Not everybody gets wedding invitations. Not everybody spends $1,000 on wedding invitations. Show us that you can make what you need to on 5 or 10 a month. And then if you do better than that, it's great. You also want to break up your expenses and income as much as possible because that's going to help you to really use this to make future plans for your business. So you want to break out, every expense, your utilities, your accounting, your marketing, your insurance, your taxes, your rent, any subscriptions you have, anything like that. And then also with your income. So if you've got a restaurant, you might say dine in, carry out, or catering, or you might say food, liquor, or merchandise. And, taking that food or liquor example, you might say, look, I think we're going to be doing 70% food and 30% liquor at this restaurant. And after 6 months, you notice that really you're doing 60-40. Using this document, you're going to be able to figure out is the issue that we're not selling enough alcohol or not enough food, or is it that our alcohol program is really strong and something we should invest in? It's going to help you figure out where you want to invest your money as you grow your business. You also want to think about, are your sales changing month to month? Are you a landscaper that's going to be way busier in March, April, May than you are going to be in December, January, February? Those are things you want to think about. And then also, are you paying yourself? How are you going to be able to afford a roof over your head, clothing, food, and a little bit of fun? So, why do we need to do these? Well, they're required for most loans, whether from a bank or a CDFI. As I said, it's a good planning tool and it shows you that difference between profit and just cash coming in. It's good governance. This is the type of stuff that as a small business owner, you should be looking at all the time so that you don't get any surprises. And then it's going to show you when you can start taking money out of the businesses, which is what we all really want to do anyway. So, what are you going to need to do to start? Well, it's also good to know that any of you here can email us. We will get you a one-on-one cash flow session for your specific business. But for those, what you're going to need is a template, either ours or one that you want to work with. You need to know how much money you currently have in the bank specifically for the business. For a lot of startups, actually most startups, that answer is $0, and that's okay. You want to know all of your income streams and an idea of what you think you're going to be making month to month, and all of your expense streams and an idea of what you think you're going to be spending month to month. You want to think about your payroll, and if you've got to pay payroll taxes, you also want to include your loan as income and your payments as expenses. A lot of folks forget to do that, and you then want to figure out your inventory cost. If you're selling a widget for $10, how much is it costing you to produce that widget? If you can figure that out, then it's a lot easier to figure out when you're going to start making money. So now we're going to go ahead and do this. But before we do, are there any basic cash flow questions before I pull up the spreadsheet? Alrighty, I'm pulling it up right now. Nope, not that one. Having a bit of a technical problem. Let's see here. There we go. So this is a spreadsheet that's set up for my fake dill pickling business. It is important to know that all of the numbers here are made up. Nothing is real. I know nothing about the pickling business. This is just to show you how a spreadsheet would work. So first thing I'm going to do is put my business name up in this one. Then you're going to want to know when your fiscal year is. For this business, it's going to be January since it's 2026. That's what we're going to put there. Then for us, we make our lending decisions at the end of the month, so you're not going to get funded until the next month. So if we get an approval in February, we're getting money in March, which is why March is month number one. If you don't have a seasonal business, these don't need to be the month names. They can just be one, two, three, four, all the way through 12. So cash on hand at the beginning. Well, let's just say that I just, got lucky and got a $500 scratch off, and that's going to be my start off. So then the next thing I'm going to do are my income. So I'm going to do a couple farmers markets. I'm going to be in Baltimore City, so I'm going to do the one in Waverly and the one under 83. We're going to do wholesale. The idea is that I'm going to find a couple restaurants who want to use me as their pickle supplier. And then we're going to do online just because we might be able to sell some online. So our loan, let's say, is $10,000. The first month I'm going to be producing stuff, so I'm really not going to make any money. But, in April, I think that's time to start really thinking about farmers markets anyway. So in April, you still only have the one weekend a month with the Waverly's Farmer Market. It's not going to be really busy because people don't know who I am the first month. So maybe I'll make $1,500 between all the weekends at the market, and then $500 online because my family is going to be buying a bunch of stuff to help me out as I get started. May, we're going to have a week with both markets, and 3 weeks with just the one. But folks are getting to know me better. There's probably going to be a very significant jump. And then, folks who've heard about us at the market, took our card, are going to buy online. And I think $500 a month is a good goal for online sales just straight through. I'm hoping that during that first month, one restaurant walked by and got $250 worth a month of pickles, and that every month I am just gaining more one at a time. So $250 more each month. Remember, we've not put any expenses yet, so when you see these high numbers at the top, they're going to go down. So here we've got $2,500 at the end of the year per month. So now, starting in June, we've got both farmers markets. Everything's kicking. Tourists are coming to Baltimore. It's going to start doing a lot better. So I'm really going to have, more than twice as many people look at my stuff in June than in May. So I think that going up to $4,500 is not, too out of the question. Um, you know, uh, July is just going to continue to grow, maybe 5,500. August is probably going to be peak. We'll bring that up to 7,000. September, it's getting a little bit cooler, so we'll bring that down just a bit. October will probably stay similar. November, we'll probably see a significant drop. And then we'll probably see an uptick in December because people are buying holiday presents. January and February are probably going to be very, very slow. compared to the other months. So at the end of year one here, assuming that this, again, I don't know how these numbers work in the reality, but assuming that these are okay, we are going to have, including the $10,000 loan, $80,750 worth of income, which is this number right here. Um, this is my cash position at the end of each month, but again, we haven't paid anything out yet. So, of course, that's going to go down. The first thing we want to do is our inventory cost. Now, again, these are not real numbers, but I'm going to assume that the production cost for these pickles is going to be, I'm not sure what happened there. The production is going to be 33%. Um, so let's see, that's going to be C 13 through everything but the loan. So that's C 17. Close those parentheses and then multiply that by 0.333333%. Of course, we didn't do any sales in month one, so we don't have any inventory cost. But as you'll see here, that's going to come in right here. Now, I'm going to pretend that I'm hiring W-9 employees as opposed to 1099 contractors for this business. In reality, I might not even have any employees in the first year, but just so that we can show this. So starting in May, once we've got, two farmers markets a weekend, I will need some help. So, maybe $600 that month. There's going to be more farmers markets in June, so we'll bring that up to 1,000, and we'll keep that at $1,000 a month. Until January and February, where I'm going to probably be working it myself again. All right, so this payroll expenses, we just assume 10%. It does that automatically. So this is a small business. I don't have trash. I don't have any subscriptions, but there's going to be some office supplies. I'm going to need a printer. I'm probably going to need a laptop for the business, and then, things to send out invoices. So let's say that there's probably, a $1,500 startup and then $25 a month in office supplies. Storage, I don't think I'm going to need for this business. Advertising, I really want to get the word out at the beginning. So maybe $150 for social media campaign the first few months, bring it down a little bit to $100 a month, maybe a bump in December for the holidays, and then back down to $100 a month. Distribution, because the people who are buying online are going to be paying their own shipping, I'm not going to put anything in here. Accounting and legal. Now, this business is not going to need its own accountant or its own lawyer, but I like to suggest just putting in $50 a month for each as a reserve. And the reason you want to do that is, okay. The reason you want to do that is you want to have that in case you need it. You want to have that money budgeted sitting in a bank account in case you need to hire these folks. The rent, this is for, a ghost kitchen in Baltimore City. It's going to include all the utilities. It's sort of an evening one. So I'm going to keep my day job and come pickle in the evenings. That's $500 a month. I'm going to get a second line on my telephone for an additional $25 a month. I'm not paying the utilities. I do have food. It's not a lot, so maybe we'll go to $2,000 for the year. Well, let's do $200 a month, a little bit more than $2,000. And then my taxes, my license from the state is $300. There's probably some city fees, so let's assume $500 for the year. So these are sort of my variable expenses. They add up to $45,518. So now we're going to do the loan payment. For this loan, again, this is just a number that I'm not 100% sure is right. Let's say it's going to be $250 a month. So we'll pull that across. The business is new. It doesn't have any other debts. Now, the startup cost is where I'm going to be purchasing all of my materials and my equipment. It's going to be the majority of the loan. Now, that $1,500 is part of the startup cost. So that gives us 8,500 to play with. So we'll put 7,500 because we're keeping a little bit as a reserve. Um, I'm not going to pay myself in year one. So at the end of year one, starting with $500 and taking out a $10,000 loan, I've got $25,832 in the bank. So my business is profitable. So did I say 25,832? I'm then going to copy the entire year, go to year two, and paste the exact same thing on top. I'm going to make this March 27. I'm going to make this January 27. I'm going to take that. Oop, that was that number again. 25,832 and bring that up here. 25,832. We're going to have this $500 for that month. I think $2,500 is a good place to be at restaurants in Baltimore. So we're not going to grow that. Oop, I put that in the wrong place. And then, March is going to be, let's say, $2,500, 3,000, 3,500. And then we can keep everything else the same. Don't need a second loan. Alrighty. So as you'll see here, I've now have these inventory numbers have changed, and I'm going to add back in some employees. I'm not going to need this initial startup, but things might break, so let's just put $500 in there. The advertising will just continue at $100 a month with a bump for December. Accounting will stay the same, legal will stay the same, rent will stay the same, phone will stay the same, insurance and my taxes will stay the same. I will be paying my loan every month. I will not have any startup costs, but I will, in the middle of the year, put $3,000 in the bank for when something breaks. Now I have $58,000 or actually $59,000 at the end of the year. So, I think it's safe to start taking a little bit money out of it, make my life a little bit easier. At $1,500 a month, I'm not quitting my job, but that $18,000 a year is going to make a big difference. I've still got $41,000 to do, start year three with. And as you can see, this is now a successful business. Before I'm going to say this really quickly, before I take this off the screen, are there any questions about how we got these numbers? Nope. Okay. We're going to go back to the presentation. Alrighty, so before we wrap up on the cash flows and then start talking about how you can use that to get money, there are a few things that people often forget to do. They forget to put the year-end amount at the start of next year, so they're starting each year with $0 instead of that 25,000 in this example. Either taking too much money or too little money out of the business. You want to make sure you're paying yourself, but not to the detriment of the business. People who are not paying for accountants, legal, or marketing, that's an investment in your business. You really want to make sure you're showing that. Having a negative cash flow for too long, the first few months you might have a negative cash flow, but if after 8, 12, 16 months, you might want to look at doing something differently. Again, you want to have that loan as income and the payments as expenses, and you want to make sure you've got those realistic expectations. So you can then use these for part of a grant, part of a loan, help get some credit. It's a good way to just ensure that your business is doing what you thought it would do. It's a good way to plan your growth, especially if you want to open a second location. And it's something that you're going to need to update from time to time. So now let's talk about, using your business plan and those cash flows to get funding. So this is specific to MCE, but most CDFIs are very, very similar. Firstly, all of our information is online. You're going to need to an intake form of some kind. Ours are available on our website, marylandcapital.org. In the top right-hand corner, it says Get Started. Click that out, fill that out, and we'll contact you within 3 business days. You're going to need the business loan application, again, online. On that, you're going to be putting most of these supporting documents that we'll go over in a minute. And then the personal information supplement will be needed and filled out by anybody who owns 20% or more of the business. As far as supporting documents, we're going to need a business plan and we're going to need at least 2 years of cash flow projections for every business. We're going to need some sort of documentation that you were turned down by a previous lender. That does not mean you need to have gone through the entire process. It is totally fine if you went to a bank and they said we don't do startups, an email from them will be enough. We're going to need to see if you're an existing business, 2 years of profit and loss statements, again, assuming you've been around that long, your most recent quarterly balance sheet, and 2 years of federal tax returns. For all businesses, we're going to see 2 years of personal tax returns for anybody who owns 20% or more of the business. We're going to see business bank statements for the last 3 months and personal bank statements from those 20% owners for the last 3 months. Everything else is optional. Reference letters, leases, certifications, contracts, invoices, marketing materials, photographs of what your store looks like or is going to look like, anything that's going to help tell your story. If you're opening a salon after renting a chair in a salon for years and years, and you come to us with a stack of 50 letters from people saying that they will go to your salon, it's going to be pretty easy to get that loan approved. So how do we look at that? How does our loan committee make a decision? So we want to make sure you've got a thorough business plan. We want to see your experience or your availability to get experience, the strength and realisticness of the cash flow. We do require collateral for these loans. It doesn't necessarily need to be the full amount. Of course, wholly owned real estate is the most strong, but we can get very flexible. Reasonable credit, you will see here that it does not have a minimum credit score. What we're really looking for is what have you been doing the last year or two? Do you have missed payments? Do you have past due amounts? The things that are disqualifiers, however, are bankruptcies discharged in the last 24 months or a tax debt without a payment plan. If you have a tax debt without a payment plan, you can be going through the loan process at the same time as you're setting up that payment plan. We just can't approve the loan until that plan is set up. Then general economic conditions. Is this the right time to open this business here? So is it, nationally or locally a good time to be opening this kind of small business? Or is it a situation where you're opening up a Chinese restaurant on a block with 5 Chinese restaurants? How are you going to survive? And then your ability to get back in the workforce should the business not be successful because you are still going to owe that loan. So we have 2 different kind of loans. The first is the regular small business loan. If you've been around for 2 full years or less, it's about $35,000 maximum. Longer than that, it's about $150,000 maximum. The terms are going to depend on the size of the loan, and the interest rates, while they're set at 6 to 12%, tend to go in the 8-9% range. Again, collateral is required. If you're using real estate, we are going to need an appraisal that's less than a year old, but don't get that until your loan is approved. Again, anybody who owns 20% more of the business is going to need to personally guarantee the loan. The application fee is $100 plus $25 per owner. So if you've got 2 owners, it's $150. And we like to think positive. So if there's a yes, there are closing expenses. Generally, if you get approved for a $50,000 loan, you'll be walking out with just north of $48,000. We do automatic payments from your business checking account each month. And there is no prepayment penalty. So as long as your loan is 30 days old, you can pay off more than your principal each month or just pay it all off, with no penalties whatsoever. Other side of that is if you are unable to make a payment and a week ahead of time, let us know. We'll find a way to defer it, interest only, or restructure the loan so that you're not getting dinged on your credit report. We're going to visit you either in person or virtually twice a year. We're going to want to look at your books and talk to you about how your business is doing and let you know about any resources that we may have. Now, as far as business types and what you can and can't do with the loans, most small businesses in our area are eligible unless it's that traditional sin stuff. So adult bookstores, 100% alcohol, things like that. Also, if you're in real estate investment, we can't purchase property that you're going to rehab and sell or rent. We can't pay for the rehab for property that you're going to sell or rent, but we can, help build out your office, get your office supplies, and get, bigger electrical equipment, jackhammers, yes, drywall, no, that kind of thing. As far as the uses, it can be really, anything that's small business related, lease, mortgage if you're buying the property for your small business, just working capital for things like salaries, marketing, things like equipment, things like furniture, all of that is fine. The one exception is if you're a home-based business, we cannot pay your rent, mortgage, or utilities. The next loan is the credit builder loan. This is for folks who are just looking to dip their toe into entrepreneurship, maybe have some credit issues in the past, or have an existing money business and need the money a little bit quicker. These terms are generally 2 years for a $5,000 loan. It's a 9% interest rate. We don't require collateral, but we do like it. All of the fees are much less, and everything else is the same about the loan. It's a separate online application for the credit builder loan. Then, before I end this presentation, I'd just like to let you know there is nowhere in the country with more free resources for small businesses than Maryland. Take advantage of all of us. Ask us all the same questions. We have different experiences. We're going to give you different answers. Use all of us so that you have the most resources to build your business. Places that folks don't think about. Your local library, your county probably has an economic development organization. Almost assuredly has a Chamber of Commerce. You want to be looking at Maryland Department of Commerce. There's the Small Business Development Center, which is by the SBA. They sometimes go as SBDC. You can get a free mentor through them or through the SCORE program, the Senior Corps of Retired Executives, and then local universities. So we've got partnerships with Salisbury and Morgan State, and we've learned that they will help any small businesses in the community. So become a part of their ecosystem, and you can get a lot of great resources from them. And then also your small business local organizations, things like your Main Street, your downtown partnership. As long as you're around in a small business, be a part of your community. So 5 things I like to sort of end with when you're looking for a business capital. Number one, keep your day job. You're going to need income as you're building your business. Number two, you need an accountant. You're going to need somebody to do your taxes and to make sure you're making your payments on time so that you don't get penalties and so that you stay in good standing with the state and are eligible for all of our services. Number three goes back to that last one, ask for help. Like I said, there is nowhere in the country with more free resources. Take advantage of that. Number four, keep your money in the bank. So this is not the time when you're looking for small business lending, unless you absolutely have to buy a house, buy a car, open up a bunch of credit cards. You want to keep your money sort of stable as you're applying for this loan. And then number five, don't be an island. People go to your small businesses specifically because they want you're part of their community. So give to your local charities, join your local organization, sponsor that softball team, be a part of your community. Last but not least, we've got a bunch more free webinars coming up. It's under the education tab at the marylandcapital.org. But also, we've got these three. I'll be doing a Let's Talk funding webinar with James Peterson from M&T Bank in a few weeks. We've got some financing options, and I'll be doing first steps to start a small business at the end of the month. And with that, that finishes the presentation. Are there any questions? Nope. Well, I always come up with my questions as soon as these things end. So my email address is right here on the screen, nrudolph@marylandcapital.org. Feel free to email me. I can get you copies of the presentation and of the spreadsheets. And then we can also schedule one-on-one cash flow sessions if you'd like to do that. So again, thank you very much. I hope you have a great rest of your evening, and we will talk to you soon.